A streamer of some note got onto stream, and what happened next, you wouldn't believe. Welcome to the clickbaiting episode of the Varietal show. My name is Rory, and I see we already have people hammering on the door. Oh, we got a new person. Hello, Big Drew. Says it's time. Yeah, that's the problem. I need to remember that there's almost a minute of lag. So I start at 6:30, but you guys probably get it a bit late. And hello again, Andrew Ryan. We'll try to incorporate more of your recommendations this week. I was thinking about you this week. It's really good to see everybody again. So, what is the Varietal show? Who am I, and what the hell are we doing? My name is Rory. I'm a Varietal writer, writer from Vancouver. The Varietal is a sort of writers' commune in Vancouver of a bunch of published writers. If you want to read our actual stories, which is half the point here, you can check the link down below, varietal-literature.ca. Stories from me, stories from other people that have been on other streams, like Avalon and Felix and Spencer and all those others. But we also do 2 streams a week. On Tuesdays, we do fairy tales and folk tales and mythology, where I just sort of read them and sometimes we discuss them a bit. And today we do the Varietal show. On the Varietal show, we do 3 things. I'll give you a book recommendation. We do what's called a lit game, which stands for literature games, where I write live and you guys mess with me in the chat. Oh, Big Drew, that's your name. Oh, right. Well, okay, Andrew, I'll try to remember that. And then the last thing that we do is usually I give a little bit of advice. We'll see how this week's goes. So I won't drag on like I usually do. I will move on to our first section, which any regular viewer will know is Left on Red. Left on Red is a my own version of a joke, so you can know what kind of humor to look forward to. It's books I've left on read. In other words, things that I think you should read that I read. So this week is the first time I'm actually going to recommend a graphic novel. I don't really ascribe to that idea that, you know, like, it's got to be a thick, boring book to count as art or as literature or whatever else. I think everything is good at its own thing. So there's no specific reason why I haven't recommended a lot of graphic novels yet. But this one, it's very hard to get in, is called Die. D-I-Y. And it's called Die because it is related to a kind of in-universe version of D&D. So die, of course, being a term for dice. And the premise of the graphic novel is just that there is this group of kids who play basically a D&D version, and their DM disappears one day when they're young. And then much older, they get sucked into an alternate realm that, as they discover, matches up with the world that DM was creating. And, well, I won't give it all away. It is heavily implied that the DM was probably trapped there as a kind of omnipotent god of the world, but couldn't escape for a while, and now seeks to put his people through the ultimate campaign. And it has really quite professional art. I think this is just going to be reflection. It isn't like you're sacrificing anything. It is really sort of top-notch art, and it is a fairly entertaining read. Holly says, "Puff, puff, puff, I'm here. Had to get the kid out of the tub." Well, hello, Penny. So it's 4 parts. It's just the first volume. Actually, it might be more than 4 parts, but I believe it's 4 parts. It's called Die, D-I-E. Volume 1's called Fantasy Heartbreaker, and it's by Gillen Hans Cowles. It's, if you're into graphic novels, I think it's a good read. The other thing I'm going to recommend in Left on Red is, I can't recommend the book, though I think many other people would, because I haven't gotten all the way through it. But I bought this book solely for its cover, and I want to show it off because if you're into sort of the art of books, I can think of few better examples. This is a cover of Dune by Frank Herbert, which they're making a movie of with Denis Villeneuve is directing. Guy did the Arrival and the second Blade Runner. But this cover is phenomenal. You can see that's Dune, D-U-N-E. It's like relief too, so you can feel it. It doesn't have a dust cover, which I actually quite like that style. It's a very matte finish. It's just the best looking version of Dune I've ever seen. And between that and the movie coming out, which is being directed by Denis Villeneuve, which is one of my favorite directors, prompted me to finally take on the beast and read Dune. But I'm not all the way through it, so I'm not actually recommending Dune because I don't know yet. But if you are going to read Dune and you are a person who's into book art, my God, is that a beautiful cover, which was designed by a Spanish designer in New York named Alex Trochat. I might be pronouncing that wrong. But yeah, so my recommendation is Die by Gillen Hans Cowles, which is a graphic novel, and I cannot actually recommend the content. I'm just recommending the edition of Dune that was designed by Frank Trochat. Not Frank, Alex Trochat. Frank Herbert wrote it. And that's my left on red. So we'll keep it moving here by talking about our lit game a bit. So what are we doing today? Well, we are dealing with clickbait. And if you are unfamiliar with the concept of clickbait, let me just... Oh, Big Drew says, my literature recommendation is Moby: Twit. It's the unauthorized autobiography of electronica techno performer Richard Melville Hall, better known as Moby, written by courtroom stenographer Tro. Courtroom stenographer? Did Moby have dealings with the law? It's hard for me to imagine. He always seemed pretty peaceful. Oh, you made it up. I see. For a minute there, I was hoping that Moby was secretly like a felonious nemesis. Menace to society. I was blending nemesis and menace. All right, so what are we doing? Well, clickbait is when a writing style that is specifically designed to force you to continue clicking things. So I think most people of my generation know what clickbait is, but in case we have anybody who hasn't encountered that term, it's things like, this airplane pilot noticed something strange with the control panel, and what happened next you won't believe. Because it doesn't tell you anything, but it feels like it's going to. And it's infamously irritating, because it's usually like a one-word answer, and then when you click on the article, which is, you say, okay, well, I've taken the bait, I've clicked. It's either something very dull and obvious, or they stretch it way out, and they start describing arbitrary stuff. And basically, I kind of feel for the people who write this. Basically, what's happening is they put advertisements on a per-page basis. So if they have a topic that they think they can get people to click, what they will do is they will put like the first paragraph on one page, and then you have to click through to the next page, and they'll put another paragraph, and some of them stretch things out to about 6 pages. So that's clickbait. So what are we doing this week with our lit game? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take some of the descriptions of New York Times bestsellers from this week, and we're going to try and amp them up a bit by turning them into clickbait articles. Well, in a lot of ways, the back of books are kind of already clickbaity. They do actually, tell you things, and clickbait can't tell you things, not until like the last sentence. if ever. So when do you guys encounter clickbait? Because I'll tell you when I encounter clickbait. I encounter clickbait every time I need some kind of guide in a game. Like I'll be playing, JoJo's Magical Adventure, and I'll have to find like 25 crystals in this, map, and I have 23, and I have spent the last hour trying to find the other 2. So I'll go into Google and I'll say, where are these 25 crystals? And first articles that come up are almost always clickbait, because you click on them and they're like, JoJo is an adventure game that requires you to sometimes collect things. And you're like, oh my god. And then you have to open a slideshow and click through sentence by sentence until at the end it'll be like, the hardest 2 to find are under the leaves. And then you'll be like, you could have just told me this. So we're going to do that. That's what we're doing. If you don't understand it, that's fair. It's a weird concept, but hopefully we can get a sense of it as we start to work through it. So I'll ask you guys, without searching, what do you think is the best on the New York Times bestsellers list right now? That's right. It's Stephen King. I didn't even know he had a book out. It's also an incredibly strange concept for a book from Stephen King. Big Drew says, my dog's name is Jojo. Her magical adventure would be if I let her out without a leash. Oh god, that brings back some nightmares. I've had dogs in my life, none of which could survive without the leash. No sense of survival. Holly's House says, slideshows are the numero uno clickbait format. Yeah, they sure are. And I get why, because if you're trying to sell like per click, per page advertising, I still hate it. So, I'm just going to read you it as written right now. Number 1 on the, number 1 New York Times bestseller right now is Billy Summers by Stephen King. And it says, Billy Summers is a man in a room with a gun. He's a killer for hire and the best in the business. So already this is kind of strange for a Stephen King book. And now, but he'll do the job only if the target is a truly bad guy. And now Billy wants out. But first there is one last hit. Billy is among the best snipers in the world. A decorated Iraq war vet. A Houdini when it comes to vanishing after the job is done. So what could possibly go wrong? How about everything? This spectacular can't-put-it-down novel is part war story, part love letter to small-town America and the people who live there. It features one of the most compelling and surprising duos in King fiction, who set out to avenge the crimes of an extraordinarily evil man. It's about love, luck, fate, and a complex hero with one last shot at redemption. You won't put the story down, and you won't forget Billy. First of all, I gotta be honest, and I haven't read the book. That doesn't sound very good to me, but maybe that got your attention. In other words, we have a book about a sniper who only takes care of truly bad guys. And I feel like we got to kind of clickbait this. So let's start from the top. And if you have ideas in chat, I am open to ideas. I'm sure we've all encountered clickbait. If there's some little like detail I'm missing we need to work in to make it more clickbaity, let me know. Stephen King's novel. Holly says, would it be a Stephen King novel if it weren't a love letter to small town America? Yeah. I like how it says like that's general. It's always, what is it with him? Maine? Or something like that? That's the only small town he writes about because that's where he's from. Stephen King's new novel is shocking readers. Let's start with that. I mean, it might be. I have no evidence, but this isn't journalism. Stephen King's new novel is shocking readers. Stephen King is best known for writing a very different genre. You know what clickbait reminds me of? It reminds me of kids in school who are writing essays that have word counts. And they don't actually have enough content for the word count, so they fluff it. That's what clickbait is. It's stretching every possible detail out. Stephen King is best known for writing a very different genre. His most famous books were usually more towards the horror genre. Some of those books are... Big Drew says, shocking readers. Literally, the pages are electrified. I'm going to put shocking readers literally and then never follow up on it. Because I feel like that's bad enough. Holly's House says, who is bad enough to get murdered? Flip the cover to find out. Okay. Remind me of that, Holly. We're not going to put it in just yet because I haven't even established what this book is about. Some of those books that are most famous include... Oh my god, I hate... This like offends so many sensibilities for me as a writer to extend out language like this. The Shining. Readers will know The Shining. But so will movie buffs. As Stanley Kubrick my god, what is with me today? As Stanley Kubrick, famous movie director, adapted the book into a film also called The Shining. Cujo, yeah, that's right. We need to list way more books. Cujo, Misery, I think is probably one of his best. I feel like it doesn't fall into his tendency towards world-breaking absurdity. It stays isolated and small. Side note, The Shining was filmed in my home state of Oregon. Oregon is such a mystery to me because, like, I've been through Oregon twice. Yeah, twice. And I may as well have gone through two different places. On two completely different countries. Like, it reminds me a bit of Washington in the way that, like, northern Washington, when you drive through it all the way up to Seattle, it's, you know, it's kind of like Canada, but with more advertising. But when you get to... I remember I was driving through southern Washington for the first time, and there was some, like, cell storage space place. It was like a sign for, like, you know, Joe's Dollar Storage or whatever, like you would put stuff in if you were moving. But in the letterboard part of it, it said life begins at conception. Now, regardless of your opinions about any of that, it's so weird to me as a Canadian to just see some random, like, U-Haul place putting one of the most fiery and debated and touchy political subjects there is up on your business's letterboard. And that like divide between North and South Washington, I think I felt it, but in a much more abstract and nebulous way in Oregon. Holly says, from the writer influenced the horror writers such as R.L. Stine. Stephen King. We'll put it up at the beginning. And we'll do it after writing a very different genre. And influencing such famous writers as R.L. Stine. Holly's House says Needful Things is my favorite King book. Just Fleece It Out says on the No Sleep Till Medford trip. Okay, so Just Fleece It Out is a friend of mine, and we went on a trip to California, and we were like East California on the other side of the mountains in the high desert. We were going bouldering because I'm a climber in a place called Bishop, California. But on the way down from Vancouver, where I am, it's pretty hard to make that in a day. Like, you probably could, but you'd be pushing some laws. So we had marked to take a hotel at about halfway, which was in southern Oregon, in this town called Medford. And on the road there, because it was getting pretty late by the time we were heading there, after driving for many, many hours, me and him started singing No Sleep Till Medford, like the Beastie Boys, at the top of our lungs, which annoyed the third person in our car quite a bit. That was the theme of the trip. We annoyed that third person in the car until they didn't talk to us anymore after that trip. But No Sleep Till Medford, yeah. Well, let me say, Medford was not as exciting a destination as Brooklyn. Okay, so Stephen King's new novel is shocking readers. Literally. Stephen King is best known for writing a very different genre and influencing such famous writers as R.L. Stine. His most famous books were usually more towards the horror genre. Some of those books that are most famous include The Shining. Readers will know The Shining, but so will movie buffs, as Stanley Kubrick, famous movie director, adapted the book into a film also called The Shining. But Stephen King's new book is nothing like his... Oh, wait, we were going to bring up Measuring Cujo. That's right. Stephen King is also famous in this genre for Cujo, the story of a rabid dog, Misery, getting into some creative punctuation here. This might actually be a... Whoa. No! My keyboard glitched. Come on. There we go. Getting into some creative punctuation. I think this might actually be grounds for semicolons. If Avalon is lurking, this may draw her into the chat. Misery, the story of a kidnapped writer tormented by a fan, and what was his first most famous one? Yeah, Being Awkward Girl on Prom Night. What was it? Why can I not think of the name of it? For some reason, the first thing that came to mind was Rosebud, but that's Citizen Kane. It's like way off the mark. Lisa says Misery, the first novel about fan fiction. Yeah, if you don't know the concept of Misery, a super fan of a guy who writes, who's obviously kind of a stand-in for Stephen King, kills off one of his famous multi-book characters, or at least is going to, and the superfan gets wise to it and basically forces him not to, using extreme measures. Carrie, thank you, Holly. I was waiting for that to come through. Not Rosebud, you dipwad. Carrie, a story of a murderous prom queen. This newest novel from Stephen King is nothing like that. So we spent an entire paragraph explaining what it's not. Perfect clickbait. Okay. The new story involves a different occupation for its protagonist than King has ever written before. I'm annoying myself. Let's be clear with this. I don't know how to put it. I don't know if anybody's like a musician or something in the chat, but oh, Big Drew says don't forget about Maximum Overdrive. See, I thought of Maximum Overdrive, and then I realized I don't actually know anything about it. It's something about a possessed semi-truck. I don't know if there's any musicians in the chat, but like when you're a musician, you get trained into like certain models of things that are based around what does the human ear respond to. Same kind of thing occurs in writers, where you are trained around like don't extend the sentence out, you know, don't use more words where less words will do. There's all these things you're not supposed to do, and everything about clickbait insists that I do it. So it's like grinding against. I've been writing for about 30 years. It's grinding against my every instinct. Okay, so the new story involves a different occupation for its protagonist than King has ever written before. Billy, whose last name will surprise you, is a works for the public good in a surprising way. Big Drew says possessed trucks trap people in a restaurant while on a murderous rampage. So it's just Cujo with like a slightly different setting. Those were the cocaine days for Stephen King, right? Like Gia says, hold on to your seats. This is not the Stephen King you're used to. Perfect. Hold on to your seats. This is not the Stephen King you are used to. Because Billy is a soldier. But not, this is a run-on sentence, but not just any soldier. Oh God. Am I really gonna spend a paragraph saying that he's a sniper? Holly's House says, no, it's Christine, but a truck. I can honestly say I don't know what Christine is. I respect Stephen King. Like, I don't have any grief for him. He can write. But he's a good example of somebody that I just never got into. I don't know. Like, sometimes, for the most part, I'll see books through. I'm that kind of person, even if I'm not enjoying them. But there are certain books that just, like, if I'm not jiving with the prose, it's pretty hard to get through it. And Stephen King has a way of writing that just doesn't jive with me very well. Big Drew says, I come from a family of truckers. Of course I have. Because Holly asked, Andrew, have you seen Over the Top? I don't know that. Okay, hold on to your seats. This is not the Stephen King you're used to, because Billy is a soldier. But not just any soldier. Billy is a highly trained soldier in precision combat. This role, let me scroll up a bit, is officially called a sniper. Guys, I think we're only going to get through one book. That's kind of the theme of this stream, isn't it? I show up with like 4 options and we get through half of one. What can I say? Writing is slow. I wish I was like did something that was more visual and entertaining, I guess. This role is officially called a sniper by the American military. No, wait, not the American military. What's a longer way to say that? By the United States Department of Defense. Okay, he trained in a war you may be familiar with. That war was fought not too long ago and was controversial for the time. Big Drew says, an over-the-top Sylvester Stallone. I don't need to read the rest. I'm sold. Sylvester Stallone, early 90s. It's about semi-trucks. What could be better? A trucker has to win his kidnapped son back by competing in an arm wrestling contest. Okay, I lied. It got better. Jesus Christ. You know, I think of this every time people give Hollywood a really hard time for making sequels or remakes. And they're like, why don't they be like the old times where people made original movies? I mean, they made original movies. There's no doubt about that. But I lived through it, and a lot of them didn't need to be made. It was like, instead of getting a sequel, what you got was 20 different spin-offs with lesser and lesser action heroes from whenever something got famous. I remember Steven Seagal's big one where he's on I think it's a train or something like that, was I think it was a spin-off of Speed, but it might have been the other way around. But I remember that one triggered a whole bunch of people to do the same thing. I guess you could really say here on my stream about the theory of 80s to 90s action movies, I guess you could really say that all of that kind of starts with Die Hard. The sort of locked in, rustic, blue-collar hero that defeats all the terrorists. Billy is not a soldier in the current Afghanistan conflict, but served in the previous Iraq war. For Billy's thoughts on the Afghan withdrawal, click here. For our breakdown on that. That's usually what they do. Holly says she really loves Tango and Cash, but also has good semi-truck action. I think I watched it. I definitely don't remember much about it. Okay, called a sniper by the United States Department of Defense. He trained in a war you may be familiar with. That war was fought not too long ago and was controversial for the time. In brackets, I'm going to say, we're not talking about the Afghanistan conflict, though. Actually, I'll make this its own sentence, because I can link it to what Holly recommended. We're not talking about the Afghanistan conflict, though. If you'd like to know King's thoughts on that, check out our tweet storm breakdown here. Okay, we have to make this realistic. Give me a second here. Underline and text color. That's probably not worth doing text color. Billy, whose last name is a spicy mystery, falls for a beautiful Taiwanese man lady from Taiwan. Named a word that will get me in trouble. If you'd like to know King's thoughts on that, check out our tweet storm breakdown here. Is tweet storm one word? Is it a word? No, King chose to set his character's backstory of training to be an American sniper in Iraq War. In the Iraq War. My God. In the Iraq War. A conflict under the George W. Bush Jr. presidency that ended in, I think it was 2005 or 3 or whatever. When did they declare mission accomplished? I'm just going to say 2005. Holly's House says, see related story, Iran and Afghanistan. They're not the same. Map fun for Americans. I think Iran and Afghanistan is the one that people know the difference between. What I think people confuse is Iran and Iraq, which is crazy because Iran is huge and very diverse, and Iraq is very small. The only thing they really have in common is the first 3 letters of their name. One was like the former center of the Persian kingdom, and the other's Iraq. Okay. I mean, you're going to have to imagine that this is split up across slides. A conflict under the George W. Bush Jr. presidency then. But that's not what's so shocking. To readers of the new King novel. Readers are shocked by Billy's current job. Billy, whose last name is a surprising deviation for King. I was gonna put his name, but I kind of just want to keep it secret, like it's somehow the big things. Billy's last name is a surprising deviation for King is still using his precision combat skills in the book, but in a shocking way. He's a clerk at a hardware store. I should have done that, Big Drew. I should have just said sucking the life out of the New York's top 10 and just taking these like high drama stories and then choosing a break point and just giving it a really bland synopsis. We'll do that another day. I do like that though. That's funny. Readers are shocked by Billy's current job. Billy, whose last name is a surprising deviation for King, is still using his precision combat skills in the book, but in a shocking way. He takes money for using his skills. His skills with firearms serve him well in his employment as a person who shoots people. A person who shoots people is traditionally known as a hitman or assassin by most authorities on the planet. GS says tune in next week for a 3-hour page recipe block. GS, I think you're on to something. I have never once occurred to me doing the story of a recipe, and I do really like cooking, and I have an enormous amount of recipe books. We could absolutely do that. Readers were surprised to find that this hitman was the protagonist. Protagonists are traditionally the good character in stories. I think every stream, I should make a graphic for it and everything. Just a graphic that says Rory made himself laugh. So protagonists are traditionally the good character in stories. But killing is usually a bad thing. And killing for money is widely considered illegal. Usually good characters or protagonists are not the ones doing illegal things. Idea for a topic. Over-explain everything about the synopsis of a story. Is that what we're doing? However, King is an experienced novelist and knew what he was doing. There is actually a Big Drew. There is a rather infamous person from the turn of the century. I cannot remember her name, but she was a terrible writer. But she was the wife to a very rich man. And basically the only thing she wanted to do was write novels. And her concept of what like the high English novel would be, which I kind of find delightful, was to exceptionally over-explain every sentence, to use strange words for everything, because in fairness to her, a lot of English literature was like showboating about how many weird words you knew. And there's snippets of her novels around, which her husband published, and they didn't really sell, that are effectively unreadable. And I mean that genuinely. And it's a great example of exactly what you're talking about there, which is like, if you over-explain things, you will ruin your novel. Big Drew says a novelist is a person who writes novels. Experience means he's done it before. Okay. Yes. A novelist is a person who has or is writing novels, typically for pay. And experienced means he has done it before, usually several times. I have so overwritten this, I forget what the hell we're talking about. Protagonist, oh my god, it's still going. Oh, right. The hitman in King's story will only kill people he knows to be bad. Bad means doing selfish things or mean things without much justification. Bad people are generally considered expendable in literature and in general public opinion. So this dissuaded criticism of King's protagonist. You know you've succeeded when you've forgotten the topic. Ollie says, yeah, that's right. I wish I could say that's just because we're doing clickbait, but my god. I forget the names of characters in my own stories. I live in basically a fog of the past and a fog of the future in a brief moment of clarity we call the present. So, bad people are generally considered expendable in literature and in general public opinion, so this dissuaded criticism of King's protagonist. What the hell are we doing, guys? I forgot. Okay, we got like less than 10 minutes. I think it's about time we do exactly what clickbait does, which is, and in some ways this is the most insulting thing. When you get to the end, it just tells you in plain language exactly what you came here to know. And you know they were intentionally just wasting your time. So this means some examples in bad people in history, and then Holly lists some off. Big Drew says writing a novel means to create a long story form from your imagination. Your imagination is what you use to create things, and creating things is the act of making something from nothing. We're getting philosophical. I'm starting to get the impression that my degree in philosophy has uniquely equipped me to write clickbait, and not just for lack of job opportunities, though that is a factor. By the way, if you're looking for someone to write clickbait, my name's Rory. You can find our email on our website at varietal-literature.ca. I'll do anything but real work. King's protagonist, which is unexpectedly called Billy Summers, a bright name for a traditionally dark author. You know what traditionally and generally and all of that does in clickbait? It means we didn't research it. We don't have any actual journalistic background to claim this. So we're using a cover word that won't get us in trouble with the laws in certain countries, but also allows us to give the impression that this is, solid. Did you just air quote your own name, a way to sell yourself? Yeah, sure. Why not? That's my new name. If you don't put the quotes around it, you're not respecting my identity. King's protagonist, which is unexpectedly called Billy Summers, a bright name from a traditionally dark author. Wants to stop being a hitman. He's offered one more job that goes awry. How does it go awry? These details have not been released yet by the publishers, but readers are shocked to see Stephen King writing an action book rather than horror. We all King fans are looking forward to seeing how he lands this new direction. Holly South says he needs an agent, Andrew. Flim Flam man to talk him up. I can be the Flim Flam man. I can. Not well, but I can. I think the thing about any creative venture, since you brought it up, is it's a mixture of like, are you good at it, but also are you doing something that's popular right now, right? And I think there is particular things that are popular right now that I'm not really in that pocket for. But that's no reason to, not write stories and release them, which the website does serve as a venue for. And people are fickle. They change their minds all the time. If you said in 2010 that you were going to start making 8-bit side-scrolling games, they'd be like, nobody's going to buy those anymore. We have 3D, and 8-bit side-scrolling games are huge right now. So, market waivers and whatever else. Spec-fic isn't the big thing right now. Big thing right now is sort of thinly disguised nonfiction, usually about a cultural experience. And they're all great novels, and I'm glad they're big. But my cultural experience is mayonnaise and cheese, so I write spec-fic, which is like sci-fi and fantasy and so on. Big Drew says I'm not good at it, and it has never been less popular. Okay, I'm gonna call our article there. So let's see how annoying. So what I want from the audience is like a market research. So as we're reading through, give me a number between 1 and 5. You can put it in more than once. About, how annoyed you are by this article. Because we're aiming for, some high numbers here, or else it's not real clickbait. So as I read through it, I want to see, what areas are you the most annoyed with. So numbers between 1 and 5. Billy Summers by Stephen King. Stephen King's new novel is shocking readers literally. Stephen King is best known for writing a very different genre and influencing such famous, very different genre than his new book. And influencing such famous writers as R.L. Stine. His most famous books were usually more towards the horror genre. Some of those books that are most famous include The Shining. Readers will know The Shining, but so will movie buffs, as Stanley Kubrick, famous movie director, adapted the book into a film also called The Shining. Stephen King is also famous in this genre for Cujo, the story of a rabid dog, Misery, the story of a kidnapped writer tormented by a fan, and Carrie, the story of a murderous prom queen. This newest novel from Stephen King is nothing like that. The new story involves a different occupation for its protagonist than King has ever written before. Billy, whose last name will surprise you, works for the public good in a surprising way. Hold on to your seats, this is not the Stephen King you're used to, because Billy is a soldier. But not just any soldier. Billy is a highly trained soldier in precision combat. This role is officially called a sniper by the United States Department of Defense. He trained in a war you may be familiar with. That war was fought not too long ago and was controversial for the time. We're not talking about the Afghanistan conflict, though. If you'd like to know King's thoughts on that, check out our Tweet Storm breakdown here. King chose to set his character's backstory of training to be an American sniper in the Iraq War, a conflict under the George W. Bush Jr. presidency that ended in 2005. But that's not what's so shocking to readers of the new King novel. Readers are shocked by Billy's current job. Billy, whose last name is a surprising deviation for King, is still using his precision combat skills in the book, but in a shocking way. He takes money for using his skills. His skills with firearms serve him well in his employment as a person who shoots people. A person who shoots people is traditionally known as a hitman or assassin by most authorities on the planet. Readers were surprised to find that this hitman was the protagonist. Protagonists are traditionally the good character in stories, but killing is usually a bad thing, and killing for money is widely considered illegal. Usually good characters or protagonists are not the ones doing illegal things. However, King is an experienced novelist and knew what he was doing. A novelist is a person who has or is writing novels, typically for pay, and experienced means he has done it before. Usually several times. The hitman in King's story will only kill people he knows to be bad. Bad means doing selfish things or mean things without justification. Bad people are generally considered expendable in literature and in general public opinion, so this dissuaded criticism of King's protagonist. King's protagonist, which is unexpectedly called Billy Summers, a bright name from a traditionally dark author, wants to stop being a hitman. He's offered one more job that goes awry. How does it go awry? These details have not been released yet by the publishers, but readers are shocked to see Stephen King writing an action book rather than horror. All King fans are looking forward to seeing how he lands this new direction. Big Drew says 0 to 10 would not click. Wait. What's the clickbait title? That's a good point. We don't have a title, chat. We're about a minute over time, so we're going to have to get it soon. Big Drew says 16 out of 10, very annoyed. Dog pooped on rug. 18 out of 10, just stepped in poop. Holly's house says... GS says 12 out of 10 on the snooze scale. Holly says, when do we get the recipe? This famous author's new novel is causing their readers to it's important that they don't answer the question. That's right. Is causing their readers what would be a good term here? It's on the tip of my tongue. This famous author's new novel is causing their readers to... Big Drew says Stephen King's best book yet. Yeah, but it's got to be negative. Like, I do like that, but I feel like clickbait's never starts on a good note. Holly says Iraq war vet murders for pay. This famous author's new novel is causing their readers to... I want to say, like, take a second look or raise an eyebrow. This famous author's new novel is causing their readers. to reconsider their whole catalog. But I'm gonna add in Holly's as well, because I'm not sold on this one that I did. Iraqi war vet murders for money. Okay. Wait. This famous author's new direction. Oh, they love words like that. To pause their... causing readers to enlist in the military. To pause their recipe blog reading. Okay. We'll call it there. The Varietal show. The LitGames part of it is... well... Dunsey onesie. This has been fun. Now, traditionally, this part of the show is Unqualified Advice. I don't know if I have a lot of unqualified advice, except don't write like that. I guess if I was trying to link it really quickly to what we're writing, like, notice what we were doing. We were explaining and explaining and explaining everything, right? And that, if you want to get to, like, what's the art side of writing, this goes for all art, really. This goes for visual art, too. It's knowing what you can leave implied. Like, it's trusting a certain level of intelligence in your readers to fill in blanks. And we sort of pushed it to the extreme the other way. Treating your reader like a complete moron that needs, you know, protagonist explained to them. Or novelist or whatever else. The thing is, there's more subtle versions of that happen in writing. You really don't need to explain everything. For one thing, it's kind of controlling, and people don't want to have art that's overly controlling. Sometimes you just leave something open, not just because you think that people will get what you mean, but also just because you need to accept that once a story leaves your hands, it becomes whatever people choose to make it. You know, how they want to see it, what their imagination makes of it. So, you know, there's a lot of gaps in good writing, and you don't really need to fill every gap. It gets busy writing. Leave people room to put their own imagination in, their own thoughts. They will not even notice that they're filling the blanks. Yeah, I think I'm gonna say that's. We're drifting towards close here. Well, I'm just going to briefly say that there are some actually new things that are going to come up, or at least little events or whatever else. If you haven't traditionally watched the Fireside Fairy Tales, in September, in the first week of September, barring some sort of scheduling issue, so far it's booked in, we're going to do something very different. And I think you'll really like it. It's going to involve a different reader, but I won't say much more than that. I'll be there, but there's a reason why I'm doing it, and it is actually to serve a request I've had around Fireside Fairy Tales for a while. Yeah, and oh yeah, also, just as a shout out in case you happen to watch this, my friend Joseph Anodi, recently CBC Shortlist Short Story Prize winner, which is actually pretty prestigious in Canada. It's a hard thing to win. Shortlist means you didn't win, but you like passed the first muster, which is good. There's the list, the long list, the short list, and then one winner. He got to the short list. But he also, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but he also got a book contract. And his book, I hope, will come out in the next year. And I've read parts of his book already, and I would characterize him as like Bukowski, but not a psychopathic jerk. That's kind of his writing style. I'm really looking forward to it. I don't want to blow anything more, but yeah, big congratulations to Joseph Anoti. If you don't know Joseph Anoti, he's not a Varietal writer, but he was in the Writers Studio 2018 class. I knew him very well. Consider him a close friend. Congrats to you. And I think also I saw that Sarah, another person from our TWS, has received a contract. So congrats to you, Sarah. As they say, given time, it will happen. And I just wanted to, give those shout outs. If you don't already subscribe to the channel, you should. It's the easiest way to know when a video goes live and decide if it's one you want to watch. Give the video a like for all the clickbait. Maybe not for that, for our mockery of it. And if you don't subscribe to us on Instagram or Twitter, you should. It's @varietal_lit on both. And it's another way to find out about things that don't necessarily go on the channel. And my name is Rory. And we've reached closing time. It's time for me to turn on the air conditioning and shut the shop. Thank you so much for coming by and for contributing to what was truly one of the worst articles we ever wrote. You should be proud. Until 6:30 next Tuesday, the shop is closed. Thank you so much. But, get out.
Thank you.